David Opon. I'm David Opon. I'm going to take you to these lectures. And basically, we are going to look at government external audit, and public accountability together with public sector audit. A lot of people call me at once. So when you hear at once, I'm the one. Okay. Any question before we start the class? Let's see if you can mute yourself. Okay. Every country is supposed to have their supreme audit institutions. And when we talk about supreme audit institution, we are talking about public entities that audit the accounts of every country. And when you come to Ghana, Ghana Audit Service is the supreme audit institution in Ghana. And as we all know, is the Auditor General that the President appoints him in consultation with the Council of States. Remember that today's topic is a full 20 marks, which usually come at question 4. Full 20 marks, so you have to take this letter seriously. However, in setting the questions, we don't limit ourselves to only the chapter 16 and chapter 17 of the ICA book. We don't limit ourselves because audit service has a lot of activities that they carry out, which can not only be found in here. So if we are setting the questions, we don't limit ourselves to only the topics here. Example is like when you look at the FS recently, if you will be looking at the questions that has been coming, at times we go outside what is just in the chapter 16 and 17, and we can ask questions about the going concern of public corporations. We can even ask questions about subsequent, when auditors go and they are auditing, there are a lot of subsequent events that has its effect on the financial statement that others required adjusting and some non-adjusting. So remember all the topics that we have done previously with my senior colleague, Stephen Edu. We can still examine you under public sector question 4. So take note of that. Even though I'm going to use you. Hello.
Hello, sir.
Hi.
Yes, please.
Yes.
A humble appeal, sir. To reduce the interruptions, if you can mute everybody for us.
Okay. Okay, so I'm starting, as I said, with question 4. That's where you'll be expecting questions under government external audit and public sector audit. And as I'm saying, this is not limited to only the topics here, in the sense that public sector audit carry out other activities. They issue audit report, they issue report to management, report to shareholders. So we can ask questions on those areas too. Besides, all the things that we have learned with Senior Edu are still applicable. Last time there was a question that we brought on quality control, because public sector audit quality control is still relevant. We can even add some audit procedures that can be carried out under question 4. So don't just limit yourself on the topics here. We can go. Besides, anything that will come in the news that relate to public sector audit, you should also take note of it. If you remember in 2020, when the president asked the Auditor General to proceed on leave, that same year on November, we brought a question on it. To what extent can it be said that the Auditor General is not subject to direction or control of anybody? So remember, we can, anything concerning the public sector audit, we can bring questions on it. Okay. So we are starting, and as I've said, every country, they have their supreme audit institution. And when you come to Ghana Audit Service, our supreme audit institution is Ghana Audit Service. Let's look at the requirement set out by ISSE 12. ISSE 12 has set some requirement that every supreme audit institutions need to follow. So let's look at those requirements that every side has to follow. 1, every supreme audit institution must be independent and must have right to perform their role. So as you know, Ghana, our constitution is saying that the Auditor General is not subject to direction or control of any other person. This in fulfillment of the International Standard of Supreme Audit Institution 12, the first requirement that is requiring Auditor General or the audit service to be independent. So that's it. Another requirement is that the Supreme Audit Institution should undertake financial and other non-financial audits. They should not limit themselves to only audit. They should undertake financial and non-financial audit. Example include the performance audit, compliance audit, risk audit. They can undertake fraud audit, or any audit can also be undertaken. And if you remember, was it last week, the chairman of the PAC requested that the Auditor General should audit Ministry of Sports. So audit the requirement of the International Standard of Supreme Audit Institution 12, auditors, the Supreme Audit Institutions are not supposed to carry out only financial audit. However, there are other audit operations that they can undertake. Besides, there should be a legislative committee and a legislative instrument to govern the activities of the Supreme Audit Institution. That's why Ghana Audit Service is having Audit Service Act 2000 that governing the activities of the activities of the Audit Service. That's Ghana Audit Service. Besides that, another requirement is that whenever they undertake their report, after their report, they should make it available to all stakeholders, not even the stakeholders, all public entities. So Audit Service, they have a website that every year, after the year has ended, by ending of June, when you go there, Auditor General will issue his report and will also put the report at their website so that all public sectors, individuals will have access to. They will have access to those reports. So they are doing so in fulfillment of the requirement set under the International Standard of Supreme Audit Institution 12. Besides that, they are also required to ensure that they be they lead by example. They lead by example. What it means is that when they need not to involve themselves in fraudulent activities that will bring disrepute into the ICA profession or the Supreme Audit institutions. So if you have noticed, it's highly that you find corrupt activities concerning Ghana Audit Service. You don't normally hear news on public Ghana Audit Service, in the sense that per the International Standard of Supreme Audit Institution, they are required to lead by example and not to involve themselves in fraudulent activities. As I've said earlier on, when you come to Ghana, Ghana Audit Service is the supreme audit institution, and the Auditor General, being appointed by the President in consultation with the Council of State, supposed to audit all public entities. Let's look at areas that Auditor General audit. Areas that Auditor General audit. And Auditor General, he is in charge to audit all public corporations. Public or corporation. When we talk about public corporations, we are talking about those institutions that are there to make profit. You can talk about Harbour, Ghana Harbour. You can talk about the railways, Ghana Pools, electricity company. All those companies are companies that are being audited by Ghana Audit Service. Besides that, the Auditor General also audit the courts. All the courts in Ghana, the circuit court, the district court, up to the Supreme Court. All those courts that we have in Ghana is the Auditor General that audit them. Besides, the Auditor General is also required to audit the central and the local government in the Ghana. So local central government, we are talking about the MDs and MDEs, and the local government, we are talking about MMDEs. All these are institutions that the Ghana Audit Service, they audit. They also undertake audit in universities, public universities. So all the universities in Ghana is the Auditor General that audit them. All the institutions in Ghana is the Auditor General that audit, including similar public entities like the polytechnics, the nursing trainings, the secondary schools. All these are areas that public Auditor General audit, or the audit service, the audit. Then any other body or corporations established by Parliament, any corporations that will be established by Parliament, Auditor General supposed to audit. Okay, let's look at the independence of an auditor, of Auditor General, independence of the Auditor General. And as I said earlier on, the first one, so here we are looking at the independence and the power combined together. And the Auditor General, as I said earlier on, per the Constitution and per the Audit Service Act, he is not subject to the direction or control of any other person or authority. The Auditor General is not subject, so no one can direct his activity. That's why it raised a concern when the President asked the Auditor General to proceed on leave. It raised a concern on it. And last year, Supreme Audit declared on it that what the President did was unconstitutional, and therefore the Auditor General is not subject to direction, subject to control or direction of any person. So that's the power of the Auditor General. Besides, the Auditor General has the power to disallow any expenditure that are contrary to the law, disallowance. Maybe the Auditor General will come, and in the process of his audit, there may be some things that that will be undertaken, the activities that has been undertaken by the accountants or by the department that he's auditing. If they are contrary to the law, he has the power to disallow those expenditure. And not just disallowance, he also has the power to surcharge. Surcharge means the Auditor General can ask the person that is at fault to repay the money, to pay the money that he has spent, then add some interest and some charges to it. So the Auditor General has the power to do all those things. However, if the Auditor General undertake these ones and you are not in line with it, you can proceed to High Court. You can go to High Court and challenge his decision. Then in relation to the disallowance of the expenditure, he has the power to disallow an amount of any expenditure that in your authority were not authorized, but you end up spending it. Remember, before an entity can expend any money, it has to go through a certain procedure. Authorization has to be, they have to make some, it has to be authorized before they can undertake those expenditures. Like the Minister of Finance cannot go ahead and spend certain things without getting approval or authorization from Parliament. The same thing applies to all public entities. So where the Auditor General comes and you are undertaking some activities that are contrary to the law, or where you did not get authorization to that effect, the Auditor General has the power to to disallow. Okay. Let's look at the functions of audit service. Functions of Ghana Audit Service, or to a large extent, functions of the Auditor General. Functions of the Auditor General. One, in the where the Auditor General is undertaking his audit, he shall express opinion on the financial statement. And per the Audit Service at 2,000, these are the things that the Auditor General has to look at it in his opinion, which at the same time are his functions. One has to do with, he has to ascertain whether all accounts has been properly kept. All accounts, public accounts, has been properly kept. The goods that they have to give the records based on the revenue that they have received and the expenditures that they have made, are they all in line with applicable financial reporting framework? Now the public sectors are using the IFSAS, and are they in line with it? The Auditor General has to ascertain whether the accounts has been properly kept. Besides, the Auditor General has to ascertain whether all public monies has been fully accounted for. Before a money will be allocated to any municipal or any public entities, they are appropriated for a certain purpose. So the Auditor General has to ascertain whether the money has been accounted for or has been used for the purpose for which they were appropriated. So he has to consider all public money as they be accounted for. Then another one has to do with the money has they been expanded for the purpose for which they were appropriated. Then he has to also look at it whether essential records have been maintained. All public records has there been a proper documentation, and those in public sector, if we are working in audit service, they usually raise observations on these issues, like unsupported expenditure. Yes, because the law is saying that they have to report on it whether essential records has been maintained and supported with relevant documents. So these are the functions of the Auditor General or the Audit Service. Another one has to do with the program. When the Auditor General goes and he's auditing, he has to also ascertain whether programs and activities of those covered entity are in line with the 3 E's. That's the efficiency, economy, and effectiveness. The Auditor General has to establish that whether the public corporations, the activities and the programs of those entities are in line with the 3 E's. So these are the functions of the Audit Service or of the Auditor General. Remember, it's not limited to this, because auditing MDs and MMDs are different from the public corporations. And therefore, let's look at the auditor's responsibility when it comes to public corporations, those that are there to make profit. What are the things that the law requires the auditor to report on it? So in exams, if we are bringing exams, we can just bring the functions of the Auditor General. In such case, you can mention the ones that I've already mentioned, whether proper accounts have been kept, programs are in line with what the 3 E's, resources are safeguarded. You can write them and combine it with the ones that I'm about to mention, which is in line with the public corporations. However, if the questions is talking about the auditor responsibility, Auditor General responsibility pertaining to public corporations, then you have to limit yourself to these points. Okay, the first one is in auditing public corporations. One, the Auditor General has to draw attention to the following. One, he has to report on the profitability, liquidity, stability, and solvency of those public corporations. Yes, are they solvent? Are they profitable? Are they liquid? Can they continue to operate as a going concern? Auditor General should draw attention to these ones when auditing public corporations. Remember, the public corporations, some of them pay dividend to government. So two, the Auditor General has to also report whether there is any delay in the payment of government portion of declared dividend. Maybe they have declared dividend after the year has ended, and government, now Ghana, we need money into our consolidated fund for a lot of activities. So where there has been a delay in the payment of government portion of declared dividend, the Auditor General has to draw attention to that, or has to report, or is the function of the Auditor General to report on any delay in payment of government portion of declared dividend. Then where there is weaknesses in internal controls, Auditor General should also report on any weaknesses in internal controls within public corporations. Then the fourth one has to do with any significant cases of fraud, where there has been the cases of fraud or losses. If they have incurred any losses or there has been some fraudulent activities, the Auditor General has to what? Draw attention to that. Then the last but not the least has to do with the public corporations, their performance. Have they achieved their performance? The Auditor General has to report on the general performance of the public corporations by indicating their achievement against the set target. So you look at the like the GRV, what was their budgeted, the amount that their target that they were supposed to collect, the total revenue that they budgeted to collect, and what was the actual collection. Usually the audit service, when you read their report, you see uncollected revenue, they raise a lot of issues. They are all in line with what? With the functions of the audit service to report on the corporate performance, and not just reporting on their performance. He has to link with the achievement against the target. Besides, he has to also report whether the 3 years has been achieved. We all know that the public sector entities, the main performance measurement is the 3 years. Now they have made it 4 years by introducing equity. And public sector entity Auditor General has to report on those things. Audit Service Act 2000 requires that after the year has ended, 12 months after the year has ended, basically June, ending of June, the Auditor General has to report to Parliament. And the question is, if the Auditor General is reporting to Parliament, what are the issues that they should report on it? There are a lot of people say that auditors, public sector auditors, like the audit service, when they come, always they will be looking at fraudulent things. Are they doing a forensic audit or what? When they come, the activities that they are undertaking is not just the normal audit that they ought to undertake. The Audit Service Act 2000 has specified some irregularities that they have to report on to Parliament. And one of it is whether there has been willingly or negligently omitted to a collection of revenue. Maybe there are certain revenues that the entity has to collect. Have they collected all the money due to the state? Auditor General has to report those ones to Parliament. So I'm talking about irregularities that the Audit Service Act requires the Auditor General to report to Parliament. And the one is they have to report on whether there has been willingly or negligently in omission of collecting of public revenue. Besides, they have to also report on whether any public money was not duly accounted for or paid into consolidated fund. PFM Act requires that once you collect any public money, within 24 hours, you have to lodge the money into the consolidated fund. So whereby there has been a delay in the lodgement, or the person has refused to deposit the money into the Auditor General, into the consolidated account, it is the mandate of the Auditor General to bring those ones to the attentions of Parliament. Besides that, if any entity has exceeded its appropriation, remember you cannot spend more than your appropriation, more than your budgeted, approved budget. So whereby any public corporations has exceeded its budget, the Auditor General has to bring to the attention of Parliament. The next point has to do with fraudulent activity. If there has been some fraud activities or deficiency through mistakes or fraud, it's the duty of the Auditor General to report on those fraudulent activity to Parliament. Then weaknesses in internal controls, ineffective or weaknesses in internal controls. When Auditor General is auditing and found some ineffective or some weaknesses in internal controls, he has to report on it. And I remember last year or so, there were some report on ineffective revenue collectors that Auditor General reported on it. And when you read that report, you will see that the Auditor General was suggesting their salary, the amount that they collected as salary, to the revenue that they have collected. And when you combine the two, you see that even the revenue that those people collected cannot even pay their salary. So the Auditor General reported on it. And these are the things that the law requires the Auditor General to report to Parliament. Then another one has to do with the resource of the entity, whether it has been used in line with the trees. Public sector, once we are talking about public sector, always the trees is answer. It's not always so, but most usually when you are writing something about public sector entities and you are lacking point, you can make it your last point, yes. So they have to also report on the economy, the efficiency, and the effectiveness use of resource within the public sector entity. So these are the things that the Auditor General has to report to Parliament. The question is professional liability. I hope you have done professional liability. And the question is, can Auditor General be liable? Yes. So all those ones that you learn over there, we can still assess you here. Yeah, we can still assess you. I'm stressing on it because I know what I'm talking about, okay? And based on the questions that are coming this time, the chapter 4, it can come from here, but we can also look at some of the issues that audit service carry out, and we can examine you on that. So let's look at offenses that those that the audit service are auditing them. What are some of the offenses that they are likely to commit? One, failure to produce for inspection. When you fail to produce documents for inspection by the Auditor General, it's an offense. You are supposed to produce your records for Auditor General to audit, and whereby you fail to produce an audit service, they usually raise observation on that. Unpresented PVs, unpresented payment voucher, unpresented valuables. When you fail to produce your records for audit, it's an offense. Another offense has to do with whereby your accounts was not properly accounted, your books, you have messed up your books, it's an offense. Remember, they can surcharge you to that effect. Then another offense that can be committed by the people that the auditors are auditing them is whereby they produce information to the Auditor General or any person acting in the capacity of Auditor General, which he thinks to be false. When you produce false information to Auditor General, is also an offense. Then an attempt to bribe Auditor General is also an offense. When you try to bribe an Auditor General, it's an offense. And remember, in the Audit Service Act, that person can be sentenced to at least 2 years imprisonment, and also not less than 500 penalty unit. So remember, 500 penalty unit. A penalty unit is what? 12 cedis. So multiply 12 cedis by 500. These are the this will be your penalty when you make an attempt or when you offend them. Okay, notwithstanding, the Auditor General or his employees can also be sanctioned. Okay, so let's look at offenses that they too can commit. One has to do with bribe. When they collect bribe, audit service people, when they collect bribe, it's also an offense. And when they also produce falseful information to Auditor General, false information, maybe based on the activities that they carry out, there are certain informations at their domain. And when they fail to what? Produce those information to Auditor General to report on it, is an offense. Okay. Then another one has to do with they too involved in corrupt activities. When the Auditor General or any of his employees connive with the public sector entities to what? To fraud the nation, is also an offense, and they are also liable to 500 penalty unit, and also not less than 2 years imprisonment. So these are the offenses that public sector entities can commit. Remember, public sector audit is more of a knowledge base. It's more of a knowledge base. And once you know the answer, you can easily apply to that effect. Good corporate governance principle requires that every public sector entity should have a board. And the same thing applies to Ghana Audit Service. They also have the board. And the composition and the board, they have a chairman. They have the Auditor General too is a member. So the composition are 7. The compositions are 7. Audit Service board, the composition are 7. They have the chairman, then 4 other members appointed by president acting in consultation with the council of the state. Then we have the Auditor General himself too is a part of it. Then head of civil entity or his representation. So the audit service, they have a board. Let's look at the functions of the board because it's also part of the Audit Service Act, even though it's not in the it may not be in ICAG book, but once it's part of the Audit Service Act, we can still examine you on it. So let's look at the functions of the Audit Service Board. So as I've said earlier on, the composition are 7. The Auditor General, the chairman, head of civil service or his representative, making 3. Then the 4 other people will be appointed by president in consultation with the Council of State. Functions of the board, Audit Service Board, what are the functions? 1, they report or they determine the structure and the technical expertise required by the service. They determine the structure. And when we look at the audit service, from Auditor General, they have the DAGs, that's the Deputy Auditor Generals. Then from Deputy Auditor General, they have the EAGs, Assistant Auditor Generals. From the Assistant Auditor Generals, you come to the directors. They have the directors. From the directors, they have the assistant directors, to the principal auditors, to the senior auditors, to the auditors and the assistant auditors. So it's the board that determines the structure. So even though this now currently, this is the structure that they are having, the board may decide to bring certain amendment to it. It's the board that determines the structure and even the technical expertise. Who are the people that should occupy a certain positions? With what expertise is the board that determines that. Then when it comes to appointment of staff and employees into the audit service, the recruitment is being done by the board. So audit service, the recruitment is done by the board. Then another one has to do, remember the recruitment excludes the Auditor General because the Auditor General is appointed by the president in consultation with the Council of State. Then another function is that they determine the terms and conditions of the officers and other employees of the service. When it comes to the conditions of service, is the board that would propose or is the board that determines the terms and conditions of the audit service. And the last but not the least is when it comes to the activities of auditors or audit service, is the responsibility of the board to ensure that the auditing activities or the activities of the audit service are spelled out in the act, are carried out in the act, and are also in accordance with what best international standards. So these are the functions of the Audit Service Board. Basically, it's 4. They determine the structure and the technical expertise, the structure, the organizational structure of the audit service. They determine when it comes to appointment of the people into the audit service, is the board that do the appointment. Then when the conditions of service, is the board that determine the conditions of service of the employees of the audit service, and also the activities of an audit service. They ensure that the activities of the audit service are carried out in line with the best international standards. Okay, Remember, public sector audit, they have internal audit agency. Internal audit agency. And internal audit agency, they also have their act, which is Internal Audit Agency Act 2003 at 657, and they also have their mandate. So let me just quickly bring them in, because I remember last two sittings, yes, we brought a questions on the Internal Audit Agency. Remember, they are all public sector entities, so we can bring a question on that. The main functions of the Internal Audit Agency is to determine or appointment of employees to MDAs and MMDs. When it comes to internal auditors to MDAs and MMDs, they do appoint internal auditors to MDAs and MMDs. Okay, so let's look at functions of internal auditors in the what? In the Internal Audit Agency, or in functions of internal auditors in the public sector entity here. Functions of internal auditors in the what? In the public sector entities. Last two sitting, there was a question on it. Who knows? This sitting we may decide to visit it again. Okay, because we are not done with it. Even though the questions are before us, we are now deliberating on it, on questions that should come this sittings. Okay, so we are looking at functions of internal audit agency or internal auditors in public sector entities. One, their main functions. One is they ensure that the financial management and operating information is reported internally or externally by the MDAs and MMDAs are accurate, reliable, and hot on timely basis. So they ensure that financial information that the MDAs and MMDAs will report on it, or the management information or operational information that will be reported by MDAs and MMDAs, they are all accurate. Another one has to do with the activity. They also ensure that the financial activities of MMDs and MDs are in compliance with the laws and the government policy. Remember that we have the local government act. We have a lot of other government activities of MDs and MMDs or public sector entities. So those internal auditors, they are there to ensure that the financial activities that are being carried out by those covered entities, they are in compliance with what? The laws. Yes, another function has to do with the resource, safeguarding the resource of national resource of public corporation or public entities. They make sure that the resource, or they ensure that the national resource are well safeguarded. They are adequately safeguarded, so that people will not be using public money for their own benefit. They also ensure that the public resource are used in line with the 3 E's. The public resource, are they used economically? Are they efficiently used? Effectively? Are they achieving the objectives for which they were appropriated? So the 3 E's, they ensure that public activities are in line with the 3 G's. They also ensure that the goals of MDs and MMDs are achieved. Every MDs and MMDs have their main objective for which they were established by Parliament. And are the activities of those MDs and MMDs, are they in line with those objectives? It is the functions of the internal audits at their end to ensure that the activities that they are carrying out, or the goals of the activities that they are carrying out, are they in line with the goals and the objectives for which those public corporations were established? Is the functions of internal audit agency to ensure that. Okay. The last but not the least has to do with risk management. Risk management. It's the functions of the internal audit to ensure that the risks are managed adequately within the MDs and MMDs. So they have to make sure that the risks that are pertaining to the MDs are also well managed. Okay. Once we are done with the internal audit in public sector, let's look at audit committee, because in 2016 PFM Act section 86, section 87, requires that every entity should have audit committee, and the law has stated the functions, the composition of the audit committee. Just recently, last year, finance minister also brought some guidelines pertaining to it, and this one is current. So I've even put that that note on the platform. Remember, current issue is also a topic on the audit. In the audit, advanced audit, current issue. So if there is any current issue, we can still examine you on it. So let's look at the audit committee in public sector. The composition is 5. The composition is 5, and we have areas that internal audit agency supposed to internal audit agency supposed to bring 2 people, and ICAG supposed to bring 1 people. And we have also a place that ICA people will bring 1 person, ICAG will bring 2 people, and internal agency will bring 1 person. Yeah, they are all on the notes that I put on the platform. Auditor, finance minister made some corrections on the previous. There has been some amendment to that effect. So the most current one is what I've put on the platform. Can't really go through, because last sitting there were questions. Was it last sitting? No, last 2 sitting there was a question on it. Yeah, we brought a question on it, and people were saying, "Oh, the question was on the functions of the chairman of the audit committee." And some people were saying it was not in the ICA book, neither was the function of the chairman was on the PFM Act. But I don't think the chairman can perform any functions that are contrary to the main functions of the main functions of the audit committee. So that's it. When it comes to areas of the judicial, legislature, constitutional bodies, ministries, department, agencies, those with governing board, it is the functions, the composition. The internal audit agency will bring 2 people, and ICAG will bring 1 person. When it comes to the appointment of the 3 independents, those with governing board, judicial, legislature, constitutional bodies, ministries, department, and agency, public autonomous, the internal audit agency will bring 2 people, then ICAG will bring 1. But when you move to regional coordinating council, metropolitan, municipal, and district assemblies, and those department and agency without the governing board, then the ICAG will bring 2 people, then internal audit agency will bring 1 person. Then the other person, the law says that when they are appointing the other 2 people, now their rank should not be those having the council or the board. The 2 will come from the council or the board. But when we move to the district assemblies, then the 1 other person will be the out of the additional 2 that will be appointed by the accounts holder. The 1 should be the presiding member. Okay. Then let's look at the functions of the audit committee. Functions of the audit committee. And basically, the functions of the audit committee, we have 2 main functions for the audit committee. We have the advisory role. We have the advisory function or the advisory rule, and we have the mandatory rule. So when it comes in exams and when it comes to exams and they are asking you on the functions of the audit committee, don't just write them, group them under the mandatory rule, and to write some points. Maybe you can write 3 points under the advisory rule, then you write 3 under the mandatory rule. However, if you have time and you can write, or it will be accepted. So let's look at the mandatory rule of the audit committee. 1, they have to persuade the implementations of recommendations contained in this report: internal audit report, public accounts committee report, then auditor general report, management report. Internal auditors will issue report on the MDs and MMDs. Public, those that will go to PAC. The PAC 2 will issue some recommendations. Auditor General 2, when he report, he issue recommendations. It's the functions of the audit committee to ensure that those recommendations contained in those reports are being implemented. Please kindly mute yourself. Okay. Okay. IT, please mute him for me. Okay. Then another functions of the audit committee is to also prepare an annual statement showing the status of how far those recommendations contained in internal auditors report, public accounts committee, and auditor general report, how well these MDs and MMDs report, they have reported on it, or they have acted on it. Is the functions of the audit committee to report on that. Then the last one has to do with is the functions of the committee to what? Also report on or they are required to produce an annual statement that indicate the actions that were proposed to those MDs and MMDs, how well they have undertaken those actions, and the status of each actions that they give to MMDs and MDs. It is the functions of the what? Of the committee to what? Report on those things. So these are the mandatory rules of the audit committee. Then the advisory rule for them, they can advise them on a lot of things. Yeah.
Uncle Dave, please can you go over again for me, please? The mandatory rules, please can you go over again? But I beg you, slow down small for me.
Okay. Yes, with the mandatory rule, basically they are three. The mandatory rule. 1, they have to persuade the implementations of recommendations contained in these 3 reports: internal auditor general report, public accounts committee, their report, and auditor general report. This report, they have to ensure that those MDs are reporting on those ones. 2, they have to also report on the status, how well these recommendations, the management, how well have they implemented those recommendations. So first one is to persuade them to do. Second, to persuade them to what? To do the recommendations. The second one is report on the status, how well they have implemented those recommendations. Then the last one is they themselves should also produce an annual statement that indicate the actions that need to be taken. In other words, further actions that should carry out to ensure that those reports are being those recommendations are being implemented. Please, are you okay with it? All right. It's almost 12:41. Okay. Then the advisory rule. One, they advise them on financial matters, how the company can produce or report on when it comes to financial matters, financial management. They advise them on financial matters. Besides, when there is any internal control weaknesses, they also advise them, they help them to ensure that internal controls within the organizations are working effectively. So they advise them on some of the weaknesses in the internal controls. When it comes to compliance with other public policies, yes, they also advise them to ensure that they comply with those public policy. Besides that, when there is any development within the public entities, maybe they are undertaking some activities, audit committee has the power, or they are also required to advise them on those activities or projects that they want to undertake. They will have to also ensure that the activities of MMDs are in line with the laws and regulations. Then, as I've said earlier on, the 3 E's, you can't go and leave them. They have to also review their report or advise them on how the activities of MDs and MMDs can be in line, can achieve the 3 E's: efficiency, effectiveness, and the economy. So these are the functions of the public. Sorry, these are the functions of the audit committee. It's getting to time, so let me try to finish soon. In public sector, they have 3 main reports that they issue. 3 main reports that they issue. Sorry, they have 2 main reports that they issue. They report on report 1 to management. Then they are supposed to report 1 to shareholders, but usually they call that one validation of financial statement, and it's their regional auditors that report on it, and they express opinion on that. Besides those one, they also carry out this main audit, which is also carried out under public sector entities. They undertake financial audit, financial statement audit. They undertake performance audit, and they undertake compliance audit. When we talk about financial audit, I know a lot of you are aware of that. That's whereby the Auditor General has to report on whether the financial statements are in line with applicable financial framework, applicable financial reporting framework, the IFSAs, the laws, the policies that are governing the entities, whether they are in line with applicable financial frameworks, and whether, in the opinion of the auditor, the account show true and fair view. So that's financial audit. So they carry out financial audit, and the main focus is on what? It's on the financial statement, whether they are in line with applicable financial reporting, and whether the informations are free from material misstatement, whether due to what? Fraud and or error. Then when we talk about performance audit, recently we have been bringing questions on it: financial audit, performance audit, and compliance audit. So you must know what goes into financial audit, what goes into compliance, and what goes into what? Performance audit. Basically, with the performance audit, there we are looking at the interventions, the programs, and the activities of the public corporations or the public entities. Are they in accordance with the principles of the economy, the efficiency, and the effectiveness? And whether there is a need for improvement. That's all about performance audit. So when we talk about performance audit, the audit is carried out in accordance to look at it, whether the activities and the programs of the entities, whether it's in line with the 3 E's. Are they achieving economy? Are they achieving efficiency? Are they achieving effectiveness? So when we talk about performance audit, that's carrying out an audit programs in line with it. Then compliance audit. With the compliance audit, we look at the laws of the entity, the laws that govern the entities, the constitution, the guidelines, the policy, and those ones, whether they are in line with it. Yeah, someone's hands is up.
Yeah, sir, you are saying are we talking about the external Ghana audit agency or the internal audit agency? Who are you referring right now?
No, I'm talking about public audit service, like public sector audit, external audit. So the audit service, the audit that they carry out. Or basically, and this one can be carried out by both the external audit and internal audit. Internal audit agency can also carry out this audit. They can carry performance audit, they can do performance audit, they can do financial and compliance. The same apply to public sector Ghana audit service. They all can undertake these types of audit.
All right, thank you.
Okay. It seems the time is fast and I learned it's just 1 hour. So let me pause and invite some questions. Okay. So if you have any question on what we have done so far.
My first question is on the when you talk about the PM, that is a presiding member being part of the audit committee.
Yes, at the district assembly.
Yeah. So we are saying that currently he's supposed to be part of it.
You said currently?
No, the former law, he was supposed to chair the committee, but currently he's supposed to just be part, but not to chair the committee.
No, with the chairmanship, it should come from the independent, and the independents are the traders, the internal audit agency, and the external audit agency. They will form the 3 independent. So among them, then they choose the chairman from there. Per the PFM Act 2016, it's not the presiding audit chairman that should chair it. No, it comes from the 3 independent.
Okay. The ICA and the internal audit agency.
Yes. Yeah, they form the 3 independent. Louis, your hands is up.
Hello, sir. Please, concerning your audit composition, what I heard was you said it's made up of 5, but when you were categorizing them, I didn't get them.
Yes, it's 5. Internal. I mentioned areas that internal audit agency will bring 2, and ICAG will bring 1, and we also have areas that ICAG will bring 1, 2, and internal audit agency will bring 1. So with the ICAG and internal audit agency will composite 3 members, but the other 2 are appointed by the accounts holder, principal accounts holder, that's the head of the entity. But those that is appointed, their rank should not be below the rank of director within the entity. So that's the 2 main will be added. Okay. Yes, Anthony.
Yes, good afternoon.
Afternoon.
Yeah, please, you mentioned 2 main reports that is issued by external auditors. I didn't quite get them. If you can read it again.
Yeah, they issue management letter, then they also express opinion on the financial statement, like the public sector entities, what they do. They report, they report to management. They also issue the what we normally call the report to shareholders, where they will express opinion on the financial statement. So these are the 2 reports that they issue.
Yeah, but a follow up with the public sector, since you don't have shareholders as in the private sector, what becomes of that one?
We have shareholders, so the citizens are the shareholders, and they have appointed the MPs to stand on their behalf. So reporting to MPs, you are reporting to the shareholders.
Oh, okay.
Okay. And there are some members too.
Yeah, they are all part of it. And even so the citizens. Hello.
Yeah, hello. I was just asking that, so please, is it the same as to the MP? No, is it the same as the report that is sent to Parliament?
No, that one is different. That one is different. And that one, it don't normally come out. The one that you send to Parliament are the report to management. Management letter is what usually the Auditor General pick his issues from. But the one that the auditor express opinion on are usually at the they leave it with the entities. Those ones do not usually come out. But we have some institutions that are also interested in those reports and they request for it. Okay, Jennifer, yeah, the time is up.
So I want to find out whether the head of the entity can also be part of the audit committee.
The head of entity, you are referring to the
head
principal
of,
account holder.
Yes.
Or the principal spending officer.
The principal spending officer.
Yeah, the principal spending officer can be passed based on the law. The principal spending officer can be part of the audit committee.
Okay, thank you.
So it's supposed to be as official. It's as official member.
You said
the principal spending officer is an as official member to the committee. It's not part of the audit committee itself.
Yeah, but I'm talking from the law perspective, where the law is saying that the head of principal accounts holder should appoint the additional member not below the rank of directors. Then in that implication, there per the law, I don't know whether you are getting it.
Yeah, I'm getting it.
Per the law, I'm talking from the law perspective.
Okay, sir.
Okay. So I think we will end here. Because the time is fast spent. So thank you for joining. I'm David Okon, Managing Director of At-Once Consult. And maybe there will be a time that I will come and join you soon and look at the areas based on the exams or the questions that has come so far. I may come and give you areas that you should specialize in the exam. So when time comes, I'll come and look at it. The areas that you should expect in exams. Question 1, what should you expect? Question 1A, what should you expect? Question 1B, what should you expect? Question 2A, in that order. So when time comes, I will come and give you those areas. Okay.
Please, your contacts.
Thank you, sir.
If someone's hands is up, down or don't call, yeah.
Okay.
It's time. Yeah.
Please, your contacts.
My contact 0243 917669 0243 917669. I'm David Okon. Most people call me At-Once, in the sense that once you meet this guy, it doesn't matter how long you have been writing, you should pass once and for all. Thank you very much. See you next time. Bye.
Thank you, sir. Bye-bye.